No, I don't know. I can't spell anything.
We're good, Vicki? We're good? Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Henry and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, community comment. If anybody has any comments, questions, concerns for items that are not on the agenda, now is the time to do so. Anybody? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to public hearings. 6.1, Ms. Smith for Alley Vacations.
Hearing Council. So I have a couple public hearings, so bear with me. We'll start with Alley Vacations. So the first order of business tonight, we're talking about 2 alleys downtown extending from Broadway to Oak and then Oak to Mount Hope Road. So these 2 alleys are a result of the 1897 plat, which platted a majority of downtown Carver. They're not alleys that the city maintains currently. We don't have utilities underneath. We are reserving easements through the alleys for power poles that are there, but largely the city does not use these, does not maintain them. So the intent tonight would be to hold the public hearing, and then there's a resolution for both sets, so it's 2 separate resolutions. Essentially what it does to the alley is it splits it down the middle, and it goes to each property owner on each side. So it takes the alley out and gives each property owner on each side about 7.5 to 8 feet, depending on the alley width. I'll open it up for questions, advise the public hearing, and then we can move through the resolutions.
Aaron, have you heard any feedback? I mean, really, this is just, there's no alley here. It's just property that's kind of been used by the homeowners the way it is, so.
I've had a couple discussions with property owners just asking for some clarification of what it meant, but nothing adverse. But I would suspect there might be some people in the audience that I sent a notice to that might have comment during the public hearing.
Any questions, David?
Well, why don't we open the public hearing? So I'll open the public hearing. Those wishing to address the city council should come forward and please state their names and addresses for the record. After all comments are received, the public hearing will be closed and no further comments on this issue will be received at this meeting. So if you guys, I'll ask that you come up to the chair, just so the folks who are watching from home can hear you. Please.
Speaking to the microphone.
I'm David Engler. I'm here for the Trinity Lutheran Church.
You can sit down if you'd like.
Yeah,
Make yourself comfy.
And we were just wondering now if there was a guy surveying, did he survey where it was?
Yes.
Yeah, but the day I talked to him, he said he was going to mark it where the center line was on Oak Street there, and he didn't put no mark there at all. So we'll still be arguing where the border line is there.
So as part of this, Bolton and Mank, our city engineer, is going to drop the new property lines. So it won't be something that will be, like, it's not something that you need to determine between the 2 of you.
That's what we're arguing. When the church built on the elevator part, they...
Can I have you speak into the microphone? I'm sorry. Folks do listen to this from at home, and otherwise they can't hear you.
Church built on the elevator part, they had the land surveyed, and they, on Mount Hope Road, they got permanent spikes in the ground where that border is. Then they had a spike in the sidewalk in front of church there between the church and David Meyer's house, but somebody pulled that out, so now
Is that a practice that still happens, Aaron?
we're arguing where the border line is there.
We can have our engineering team go back out and stake the center line.
Because the way he's got one stake halfway up the alley towards Oak Street, and if you line that up with our border line down on Mount Hope Road, David's house is right on the line, and his fence is over the line. So if we can get that straightened out where it is.
So I suspect some of those issues happen inadvertently. This isn't something that will resolve that issue. That would be a private property owner dispute if it is on your property, something this process won't resolve.
But what did the surveyor guy do that day he was surveying?
So the surveying team out there created the description for the alley, so the legal description that shows where it is on the plat. So essentially where that red line is, we have the legal description of where that is.
But it doesn't say where it is, so how do we know where the center is?
Sure, so it does, it's in some jargon that is probably not the most readable format, but again, we can have someone from the engineering team come out and set where that stake should be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tim Gare, 400 Oak. I just had a question, and you kind of answered it already, Aaron, about the easement for the utility. So if I wanted to move my fence back to where my property line would then extend to, I could do that, but if they came in and wanted me to move it again, I'd have to take it down?
Wow,
Kind
very
of.
good, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I think they could reach everything from the school if they came over, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, we would just ask that you probably reapply for a permit, and we
Yep.
can look through that together.
Exactly. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Tim. All right. Hearing no other public comments, I'll entertain a motion to close the
I'll
hearing.
make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Councilmember Sayer and a second from Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Right.
I can make a motion to adopt Resolution 120-19 and 121-19 vacating alleys.
We have a motion by Councilmember Mock,
I'll second that.
a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you. Moving on to the drainage and utility easement vacation for Meridian Fields. Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Again, this is our second public hearing of 3 tonight.
3.
A little bit different. So at the time of platting of Meridian Fields first, drainage and utility easements were put over some areas that are going to develop in phase 2, which we're considering tonight. Construction is not permitted in drainage and utility easements, so they need to be vacated essentially to allow phase 2 to be platted. Larry could probably go on a long spiel about what it actually means, but that's the gist of it. We need to vacate these to be able to plat phase 2 of Meridian Fields tonight. Again, there's a public hearing. Notice was provided to adjacent property owners and in the Chaska Herald.
All right. I will open the public hearing. Those wishing to address the city council should come forward and state their names and addresses for the record. After all comments are received, the public hearing will be closed. No further comments on this issue will be received at this meeting. Anybody want to make any public comment? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Henry and a second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion?
I just have one clarification, Aaron. So I'm assuming that any drainage or utility issues are being resolved in the phase 2.
Correct. So the areas that we are vacating right now are going to be replatted
Right.
later this evening.
Okay, and any issues that when we were doing phase 1 and we wanted to have those drainage utility easements because we thought there might be issues in those locations, that issue, whatever those issues were during phase 1 are now resolved with phase 2.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's what I assumed, but yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, thanks.
I'm good.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. That was the motion to close the public hearing.
Oh, whoops.
That's okay.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 122-19, vacating drainage and utility easements for Meridian Fields.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Sayer and a second by Councilmember Henry. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 6.3, drainage and utility easement vacation, the Meadows at Spring Creek.
Thank you,
Ms.
Mayor and
Smith.
Council. Isn't it weird how they all fall on the same night? but it's 3 in the middle.
It's almost like you planned it that way.
Right. So again, a similar situation in the meadows at Spring Creek. We'll be considering final plat later tonight. So to move forward with replatting of Phase 2, there are drainage and utility easements that were platted in Phase 1 that need to be removed that will allow for construction. Again, a public hearing is required.
I will open the public hearing. Those wishing to address the city council should come forward and state their name and address for the record. After all comments are received, the public hearing will be closed and no further comments will be received at this meeting. Any comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Henry and a second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 123-19, vacating drainage and utility easements for meadows at Spring Creek.
I'll make a second to the motion.
We have a motion by Councilmember McKnight and a second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we're on to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Easy for you to say. We've got a motion by Councilmember Henry
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. New business, the final plat for Meridian Fields. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we are considering final plat for Phase 2 of Meridian Fields. A little bit about where we've come in this process. This project for Meridian Fields required both annexation and a comprehensive plan amendment that both have been approved by the City Council, adjacent jurisdictions, the state of Minnesota for annexation. We saw this concept originally in February of 2008, considered preliminary plat pretty close to a year ago, moved through Phase 1 final plat, and here we are tonight. The Planning Commission reviewed the Phase 2 for final plat at their April 18th meeting, forwarded a recommendation of approval to you on a 5-0 vote. So where we are in relation to the rest of the city, we are just south of Highway 212, near Carver Elementary, west of Carver Commons, or the United Properties piece, just north of the Song property. Some information about the development. This one was pretty unique that it came in and it did not require a PRD. We rezoned the property from ag, which is the default anytime a property is annexed into the city, to R2. So this development is hitting the straight R2 district in our city code. The typical lot is 65 feet wide and roughly 7,000 square feet. Phase 1 included 36 lots that were previously platted. Phase 2 considers 47 lots for 83 in total. This is what it looks like today if you pull up the county or city GIS. So you'll see that Phase 1 has already been platted. Those 36 lots already exist. Construction of Monroe Drive is happening over the summer. If you've driven past recently, you've seen that there's a model out there now. So looks like there's a house kind of in a sandbox, but it's getting there. And then the pretty picture that shows the outline. So the 36 that were platted in Phase 1 are outlined in red, and the portion in the orangish yellow are the 47 additional lots that will be added with Phase 2. Largely, the final plat for Phase 2 does match the preliminary plat. We've been going back and forth a couple of times on some conservation easements that will be held with Carver County. So you'll see that some of the, some of the lots extend a little bit further than they originally did. On the screen now is the landscape plan that was approved with preliminary plat, so nothing to comment on at this point, just shows the general landscaping. As you'll recall, this project did require some additional buffering both along 212 and then to the east next to the commercial user. So this shows the general layout of landscaping throughout the plan. Some samples of the D.R. Horton product that they're proposing. So it's their express line. It's D.R. Horton's first time in Carver, so our first time having D.R. Horton as part of the market. You'll see that the model looks pretty similar to what's on the screen right now. So anticipate additional homes to be constructed in Phase 1. Again, tonight is just considering Phase 2, which is the final 47 lots. Deborah J. with D.R. Horton is here tonight if you have questions specifically for her. Otherwise, I'll open it up for discussion.
I just have a couple questions. Erin, you said some of the lots extend further.
Yeah.
Can you point out what areas you're speaking about?
Yeah, I'm wishing I had put the plat in here, but I foolishly did not. So they're right on the bulb of Dewalter. That's the cul-de-sac on the west side. Some of those lots are getting a little bit bigger. So there's an area back there that we're saving for conservation that will be included in lots. So it's essentially a protection for these lots. We're going to mark them really well just so people who are buying the properties know where the signs are that say, beyond this is conservation, you're not able to touch it. So a majority of the site where Outlot A is really wet, so it's an additional protection for the wetland area with a conservation buffer.
I have a,
I just have
Yeah,
one
you
more.
go.
And then I think my next question is for you, Deb, if you don't mind. I know we talked about some of the different building materials that you're going to be using in those homes that have their backyards right to 212 and then some of the other. Are there any of those homes in this phase?
Yes. There are.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah,
Sorry.
No, okay. And those folks, when you come in, that conversation takes place right away, that
Yes, we actually did an analysis of the building materials out here, and Westwood Professional Services did a noise study on the construction, and it happens to be that the windows and the walls that we're building meet the standard of what the decibel level we have to get down to. So there aren't any special materials that we need to put on these certain homes.
that conflicts with what we were told when we approved the first phase, that there were going to be heavier
Right,
duty.
we actually did a analysis of, I think staff should have that in their files.
I thought the reason that they were going to upgrade those materials was because of a study that was done that was showing that they were deficient when it came to the noise decibel boundaries at the edges of those homes.
When they did the study, they didn't know what our construction was like. So I actually have a copy of the.
So, Deb, are you talking about your construction materials?
Yes.
Okay, so the construction materials that they recommended, they didn't know what D.R. Horton's construction materials were. So I think what you're saying is that your materials match what the noise study requires.
Yes. Yes.
Without having it be
Without
an
having to do
add-on,
up.
essentially.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, those are my two questions. Thank you.
I had a question for either Aaron or Deb. Regarding that cul-de-sac that has some property lines right up with what will be a conservation,
Yes.
who administers or enforces that?
So an agreement is signed with the Carver County Water Management Organization, or the CCWMO.
And is there like a holding pond, or is
What's that?
there a holding pond? Is it just,
No, so there's nothing on the back of the lots that will be adverse. It essentially makes a conservation where no one can touch it. So no construction will be taking place back there. It's just additional conservation.
It's real similar to the houses in the bluffs that back up
Okay.
to the conservation area.
And just to add, we actually add a disclosure. So all of our buyers are required to sign a disclosure at the time of purchase agreement. So we're going to call out these specific areas. Additionally, each of the surveys for the lots, which buyers get when they buy their house, are going to show this area as a non-buildable area, aside from the signage that will be out there as well.
with the conservation area, is there any kind of easement when it comes to like decks or things like that?
So it changes a little bit. It's going to appear that their property is a lot larger than it is if they look out to where the sign is.
Right.
But no, so we've done.
So their buildable area, right, where they can put a deck or they can put
Correct.
structure, whatever like that, is going to be a bit smaller.
I would say it's pretty standard. Their lot is significantly larger. So the
Okay.
area that they can put the house, the deck, we've looked pretty closely at. I don't have any concerns with setback issues.
Okay.
Their lot is just going to
Setback was the word I
feel
was looking
larger.
Okay, yeah, setback was the word I was looking for, and I couldn't find it. Okay, good. And I like that you're reviewing everything up front with homeowners, because that has been a challenge in
Yeah.
the past, where people
Yeah.
are like, oh, this is my property line, I can build right up to it, and,
We try to do what we can
That's
because
great.
we run into the same issues.
good, okay.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a
I'll
motion.
make a motion to approve resolution 124-19, final plat for Meridian Fields Phase 2.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Henry and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll make a motion to approve resolution 115-19, final plat for Vincent Bluffs of Carver for the Meadows of Spring Creek Phase 2.
Do you want me
Okay.
to give a
We
presentation?
need a
We
little
haven't seen the
discussion.
presentation.
Haven't seen that one yet.
That'd be fun.
I'm thinking curling here. I'm thinking curling.
Listen, it has been a little bit of the Aaron Smith show, and I hear you, but
And do we need to name everything?
I think we know how Glenn feels about this one. He wants, like,
so I think that motion
Any of it.
failed
For a
for the
second.
moment, for lack of a second.
Are you fine?
Okay, go for it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we are reviewing another final plat. So really similar to the process that we just went through with Meadows at Spring Creek. This is for, Meridian Fields. This is for Meadows at Spring Creek, in with Trinity Development, built by MI. So we saw this concept plan January of 2017. Moving through the process, rezoning was June 4th. Again, Planning Commission reviewed at their April 18th meeting, forwarded to you on a 5-0 vote for approval of Phase 2 final plat. So where we are just south of Old 212, east of the Spring Creek neighborhood, north of the Ellen Redmond or Hawthorne Ridge project. And here's a pretty picture from the MI website that shows the lot layout. So members from Trinity weren't able to make it tonight, but we had a quick conversation about how sales are going. They weren't anticipating that Phase 2 would come in this quickly, but the amount of interest that they've seen in this development has made them want to come in quicker than they anticipated. So several lots along Green Ash, the ones that are colored in the bottom, sold a lot quicker than they thought they were going to. So the extension of the cul-de-sac was something that they wanted to get online as soon as possible. If you've been back in that development lately, you'll see that the site was mass graded. So the earthwork is completed on the site. The streets are in really good shape for Phase 1. They'll continue Phase 2. It's not a ton of additional street that needs to be added, but overall the site is really clean, and there are quite a few houses and they're popping up quite often.
Is green all the sold?
Yes.
Wow.
So this is what Phase 1 looks like platted. So Phase 1 included the first 77 lots. It's a mix of villas and single-family homes. You can see that the villas are the smaller lots. So this project came in as an R2 PRD, so an R2 planned residential development. The villas triggered the PRD. So the single-family homes meet the R2 zoning district, but the villas require a slightly smaller lot, additionally smaller setbacks. What the villas also offer is kind of the hands-free home ownership. So snow is taken care of, lawn care is taken care of. It's hitting a demographic that we historically haven't hit in Carver. Interesting that we have it both in Meadows of Spring Creek and Oak Tree. So it's going to be interesting to see how the market plays with the villas coming online. So some information about the development, the details that show the R2 with the PRD. So you'll see that the villas, the side yard setback drops down to 5 feet instead of the 7.5 that holds true for the single family lots. So on the screen now is Phase 2 final plat. So it includes 74 lots. This project came in really clean, that the final plat matches the preliminary plat without any changes. So the fact that the development team was able to nail the preliminary plat to final was really impressive.
Nice.
Something that we found to be really easy to work through. This one was a pretty easy one to review. So the 74 lots that are on the final plat tonight are shown on the screen now. So it fills out Mulberry, and then it's also the extension of Green Ash Drive, which is the cul-de-sac. Thinking through landscaping, again, if you've been through the site did a really great job with tree preservation, so there weren't a ton of trees that were taken down for the construction. And again, typical that each lot will have an overstory tree. Some samples of what the different types of housing in the development look like. So you'll see the top are closer to that single family, bottom are that villa product, that smaller product that fits on the smaller lots with a reduced side yard setback. So again, tonight is consideration of final plat of the final 74 lots, bringing Meadows at Spring Creek to a grand total of 151 lots. I'll open it up for discussion.
Any questions?
Yes, I have a question for Larry. This is, I work for MI Homes now, and this is one of their projects. Do I have to recuse myself from this vote? I work on the east side of the metro area.
You don't have any direct financial interest in this. You have no ownership in MI Homes. You're solely an employee.
Yep.
No, I think you're okay.
All right, that was my question.
Thank you for checking on that. So I had a question. I think it's Mulberry Lane that goes south. That is, when we saw this early on, there was a parcel, a landowner who was concerned about access. Is that for access to that plot that's kind of down the bluff? It's a bit.
Sure. So the property that's directly south is landlocked right now. So Mulberry Lane will give access to that site. So previously they did not have access. This will give it to them.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Aaron, I have a question, and this is more of a curiosity question. It's not directly in this approval tonight. That triangle piece that sits above it, on the opposite side of the road, is that Chaska or is that township?
Chaska.
It is City of Chaska. Okay.
That's all. But Glenn has plans for it. You have plans for it?
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay. Any further questions?
No.
Glenn,
No, I'm good with questions.
you have anything else you want to?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve resolution, was it 115-19, final plat for Vincent Bluffs of Carver for the Meadows at Spring Creek Phase 2.
Now we have another motion by Councilmember Henry
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now we're on to communications.
Let's see, so we did have a business council or alliance meeting with the business owners in town, and we did bring up, we asked for feedback about food trucks. So that was a really interesting topic. We talked about, kind of asking about some feedback if we were in our ordinance to support putting food trucks in like downtown locations like Depot Park or over by the building right adjacent here, other city spaces, if we allowed that, if that would be perceived positively by the business community. And it was enthusiastically so. So they thought that would be a great amenity, bring more people downtown and just enhance what we have already within the downtown, especially in the occasional shops and things like that too. So that was interesting feedback I thought I'd pass along. Anything else? What else am I missing from that meeting? That was a big topic. I came in late. Okay, that's my update.
There's a Parks Commission meeting next month on June 10th at 6:30. Otherwise, also, maybe it's already going to be reminded, but I think we have a groundbreaking again on this Friday at Lakeview Industries, so that should be exciting. Hopefully favorable weather this time. That's all I have.
Okay. Chrissy?
I just have a couple of questions. All right, well, our HBC meeting was canceled, so we did not have that this month. Brian, Riverside Park, do we have any idea when that might be reopened? I haven't looked. I have no idea how high the water is.
Actually, last week it went down. We were able to get in there. Now the river came back up here. So there's quite a few washouts and stuff there, so we're still kind of evaluating it.
Okay. All right, I know the fishermen are getting antsy.
And women.
I'm sorry, yes, the fisher people. And then I wanted to maybe, Brent, ask you, and then Brian, I know that I did mention it to Brian earlier this week. The alley that is part of the paving project this summer, which happens to be the one I'm asking is behind my house. We have August as a date now for that, or is that the projected date? I'm just curious as to why that got pushed back so far. We had originally heard it was going to happen earlier, and my fear partially is that downtown, and this seems to happen a lot, is that things and projects get pushed in right before Steamboat Days, and we are doing things the day or two before Steamboat Days starts, and I just want to make sure we avoid that. So is there a reason that it got pushed back to August?
I'm not aware of any dates being selected. I hear your concern about Steamboat Days, and we want to avoid that. I don't recall any like phasing schedule for that, so I apologize.
Okay, I thought I saw one somewhere, obviously, because I thinking about, but I could have misread it as also, but I thought it said August. I don't know, Brian, if there's a schedule that you have seen.
I would just say, though, your comments are well received, and we're going to talk to the contractor about not having them anywhere downtown within 2 to 3 weeks of Steamboat Days. We don't want blacktop going down the week of or the week before. I would say it's a pretty efficient project down there as far as getting that completed. Looks like the city engineer wants to say something, so I'll give it to you.
I would say when the project starts, it tends to be where the contractor's planning on doing their work. And then we have some weekly meetings, and we can kind of redirect some of that the best that we possibly can within the realm of the contract. And generally speaking here, we're aware that would not be good timing.
Right.
And so we'll be trying to shift stuff around. But you generally are starting with where the contractor's plan of attack is going to be to try and get the work done. So
Sure. And, ours obviously is a smaller part of the project. I don't know if that is a good thing to get it done earlier or a bad thing to get it done earlier, but you can be assured that the residents in that area are happier the earlier the better.
okay, well that'll be carried forward to the contractor who's getting paid by the city. So
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
We had a planning commission meeting, and we went over, we had Madeline Sevlin in from the Carver County Water Management Organization, and she gave a pretty extensive view on how that organization wants to kind of control water, and it was pretty good. Then we talked about the United Properties with the lot where the gas convenience store, how that's getting separated out. The concept of the Song property was highly received, and Hawthorne Ridge, that was voted on unanimously, and we will see that
June 3rd.
June. And that's all I got.
I just have a few quick things. I just wanted to recognize Nick Mason, who was our reporter for the Chaska Herald, who covered Carver. Carver was his beat, Carver was his heart. Passed away, lost his battle with lung cancer on Saturday evening. So his wife sent me a text and said that he fought and he did it on his own terms right up until the end. So we recognized Nick last November with the Key to the City, and just wanted to point that out, and if everybody could send all their thoughts and good juju to the Mason family. On a happier note, this morning I was invited to help welcome students from District 112 who were participating in a debate right here at Council Chambers. So what they did is they took the top 3 debaters in each 5th grade class from each of the elementary schools in the district, and they all came here. And they split the day. They went to Carver Place, and they did a mock trial, and then they came here, and they did debates. And I watched the first one today, and these kids were amazing. Like, super respectful and really smart, and, like, it was live action. So they're taking their notes after they're presenting and their opponent, and they're going pro and con, and it was amazing.
What were some of their topics? Do you remember?
Some of the topic that I witnessed the debate for was to have a school specific to STEM. Thank you. To STEM in the district. So one person had to argue for it, and then one person argued against it. They also talked about giving kids time to volunteer was another topic. Having year-round school was another topic. Some really Good stuff. And then the mock trial dealt with the case of the stolen lunch. So, it was riveting. And then my third thing, Brent and Dan, for the 2019 project, when I've noticed that there's been some marking up in Midtown Carver and locating lines, when is that going to start for that project?
Well, I mean, the contractor's planning on end of this month, early June is the gist of it right now. So
Okay.
They're comfortable getting it done with a little bit of a later start, and so that's what they're planning on.
Okay, not too much of a later start. It snows here in
In most months.
most 10 months out of the year. Okay,
Yeah, your construction notices did go out based on the contractor's schedule, so there should be some awareness about what's happening. But
Okay.
They still have the same deadline for what it's worth
okay,
to get it done.
okay, good. Thank you. Let's see. Any comments, questions? Dan, Brent?
Did you want to talk about community leaders?
Oh, sure. So that kind of talks about the broader issue. So there's the District 112 Community Leaders, which is a group that's comprised of the sheriff, the Carver or the Chaska Police Department, the mayor and the city manager for all 4 of the communities where there are schools. So Chaska, Chan, Victoria, and Carver. And we met last Wednesday, and Brent brought in some of the folks from the topic is race and equity and diversity and racism in the school district. So for the past probably at least 3 weeks, Brent and I have been attending meetings, taking a step back. The first meeting, we had a small group meeting where we met with the superintendent, the school board chair, another school board member, the mayor of Chaska, Matt Podorowski, Brent, and myself, and are trying to really start discussions to see how we can help address some of these issues, what can be done. And then there was another meeting with that same group essentially, and then a few parents where we saw a presentation and spoke with folks from the YMCA who have a equity program that has a million different facets, and they're going to be working with the school district to kind of figure out it's not a one-size-fits-all program, so trying to figure out what will work the best here in Carver, or in the schools. And then last week's meeting, Brent brought in his contacts with the League of Minnesotas, who presented kind of another option. And can I put you on the spot and have you kind of explain that program and training a little bit more?
So the league has built a race equity model to help communities develop awareness, look at biases that they might have in their policies, programs, etc. So Kevin Frizzell, the membership services director with the league, came out, and then actually a colleague of Larry Harris is Kevin Staunton, who's on the Edina City Council, and the city attorney for Excelsior came out and just shared some perspectives. I don't know if you recall, but the Edina Police Department had an incident with a pedestrian on Xerxes Avenue a couple of years ago, and just kind of, it was a really, frankly, a great meeting, although kind of a topic that sometimes can be uncomfortable and scary for folks, but just sharing perspectives and understanding that this is an issue that comes to you if you don't go to it. And so what is shaping up is maybe an opportunity for the community leaders group to go through a half-day equity training that the league has done. I participated in it as a board member with the league, and so it's just about facilitating conversations in a safe space and looking internally at your organizations and the organizations that we all lead for opportunities for growth and opportunities for inclusion. And so it was a good discussion, and we're continuing an ongoing kind of a support network to help the superintendent and the school board in whatever way we can to show our support for all the children and parents in the community.
If the Norwood Pool organization is looking for some input from somebody who has had firsthand experience with race relations, just give me a shout. I know a person that would be more than happy to come speak to the whole group.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And I do have a couple other items. The city's going to be posting, and we also have in our June newsletter, we're going to be starting construction, or the contractor for Meridian Fields is going to be starting construction on turn lanes at Spring Creek Drive and Jonathan Carver Parkway in mid-June. So the Jonathan Carver Parkway will be open the whole time. Spring Creek Drive will be open the whole time, but there will be some, you'll notice the construction and it'll impact drive times, etc. So that notice will be going out both on social media and in the newsletter. Excuse me. You may have noticed that there's some work going on 6th Street West, maybe about a quarter mile in, next to the Jimmy Fletcher property. There's a storm sewer pipe that the folks from Hawthorne Ridge are working on that was clogged, and so they're going through a process of kind of mitigating that issue, and then they'll be constructing a new stormwater pipe in that area. Another piece that will be coming to your work session agenda on June 3rd, the city has received a number of calls from concerned residents regarding parking on Mount Hope Road. There's a hodgepodge of different no parking sign placements along that stretch, and so we've asked the city engineer to prepare an analysis and take some pictures and make some recommendations. And so what we're suggesting as a process is to present that to you on on June 3rd, and then once you've had a chance to digest that, we'd schedule consideration of action at a future meeting, and then invite residents along that corridor to have an opportunity to share their thoughts and views before the council decides to take any action or no action on that issue. WSB just completed work on the submission of a $7 million grant application to the DNR for a certified levy project. So I actually got an email back from the DNR today that they're in the process of reviewing. So we'll keep you up to date on that. As it relates to developments, pardon, was there a question?
Oh, no. That's just very exciting.
We're very excited.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
The council approved 2 development agreements tonight, and so final plats, kind of one of the final stages, or if not the final stage in the development process, is the approval of the developers agreement, and the mayor will sign that once that's all put together. One of the things that we've noted as we've kind of had our ongoing staff meetings is that the council, at least this council, hasn't for some time, and this council ever actually gone through what's in the developers agreement and understand all the ins and outs of what is put in there and perspectives. And so if you ever want to make a city attorney's day, ask him to prepare a presentation on developers agreements. It'll be
Look at how happy he is. Wow.
It'll be like Christmas morning. So Larry has put together a draft of that, but we're going to be hitting that with you this summer, and just kind of give you a flavor for some of the pieces that go into these development projects. There's quite a bit of detail and quite a bit of work that Brian and Aaron and Dan and Larry put into those pieces and provide the city some assurances to make sure that what you're approving on a night like tonight gets fully implemented, and if there are concerns, that we have mechanisms to go back to the developer and enforce those pieces.
Will that be during a regular council meeting or a work session?
That'll be
Way past 8.
work session.
See how you are.
And then we're planning on having Abdo come out to your next meeting on June 3rd to present the findings of the 2018 audit. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Brad.
Aaron?
The June 3rd City Council meeting will be forwarding some of the Planning Commission topics that we talked about at the last meeting, so United Properties or Carver Commons. The Song property concept, mailing went out to the neighboring property owners within 350 feet. The video is also available for the Planning Commission meeting. There was really good dialogue with the Planning Commission and then the developer, Summergate. So if anyone's interested in that project, I'd recommend going back and watching last Thursday's Planning Commission meeting, and then we're working through Hawthorne Ridge final plat. So those are my upcoming council agenda items.
Larry?
My goal in giving you a presentation on developers agreements is to make sure that it's less boring than the annual MS4 permit review.
You know what? That will be easy, Larry, actually.
Back row? No? All right. The one thing I did neglect to mention, and Brent kind of talked about it, last Thursday night we had a levy certification meeting. We had a community meeting. Christy and I were both there. We probably had about 8 residents there. Lots of really good questions. We have some new drawings, kind of from the perspective of how does it look like from downtown, how will it look differently. There are about 6 different segments that the work has been broken into. So the purple piece means that this kind of improvement will be done, whereas on the white piece, just this is being done. So all of that information has been put on the website, and that's a really good resource to see what's going on. And no, we didn't tape that meeting, but it was good, and it's still on our radar.
As I say, the new drawings are really fantastic. It really gives you a great visual, even from what we've seen before, to take a look at what could happen.
I think I saw some of those. I think Brent sent them out, and I was just like, oh, this is, I mean, this is a much more resident-friendly view versus some of the engineering drawings that we've seen. You know, it's hard to say, what is that really looking like? And you're like, oh, here's the grass, here's the slope, here's where we're going, yes.
Yep. We got to ask some good questions, so did the people who stopped by. I had to leave the meeting a little bit early, so I don't know if there's anything afterwards that you wanted to comment on that I wasn't there for.
No, we had a good, really interactive presentation, and the folks from WSB were great, and they didn't get any questions that they were necessarily stumped on. Folks are looking for some really specific answers, and we're still not there yet. So we need to figure out this funding issue for the project before we can kind of start looking more at the drawings and getting people out there. That said, none of that will take place without the face-to-face meetings that some of the residents are requesting, as we do with every single project in the city.
Yeah.
So,
Were the residents that were there, were they adjacent property owners to the levee, or was it just generally just any downtown resident?
yes, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both? Okay, good. Good.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Mock and a second by Councilmember Henry. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.